So you're welcome to CLCD's graduate school lecture series, and CLCD is an abbreviation for the name Center for Learning and Childhood Development. The center seeks to, so the CLCD is an NGO that seeks to advance research, promote child health, and then save lives. And the purpose of this research seminar is to equip us as grad school and students is to equip us as grad school students in building our research capacity and also help us to become independent researchers. And so would encourage everybody to make notes. And then at the end of the session, you get to ask your questions. And also at the end of the session, you get to know our next speaker and then the topic for the next month. So our speaker for today is already on my screen. He's Dr. Kwame Sechi from the University of Auckland. He teaches biostatistics and research methods at the grad school level. He's also the director for CLCD Ghana, and it's a privilege to have him here with us today. So,
Okay. So my background is in public health. And so a lot of the examples and the way I think about some of these things are influenced by that. I study maternal and child health, but I think a core of what I do is around stigma is a big part of the work I do. So when I draw an example, so you see that filter through quite a bit of this. I finished my PhD about six years ago in Baltimore at Hopkins, and I think some of the things that you guys are going through, I'll be same thing I've also gone through. I feel like by the time I got to my dissertation, I've changed my topic like 10 times. And it's what gave me the most stress, but now it comes a little bit naturally without even thinking about it. But at the same time, it takes a skill to kind of get to where you are going. So today I'm approaching this from the perspective of think of my audience as individuals that are also in grad school trying to find a research topic, and individuals that are also maybe out and trying to identifying gaps. So I'll bridge the two of them. And in doing so, I'll point you to some of the lessons that I've learned. Sometimes it's from experience, more so than like reading about. So I'll share a few of them with you as I go. Okay. All right. And you can pause and stop me at any time so that I can answer questions. All right. I want to use different people's experiences to help start sometimes these emails or the English. Maybe sometimes there's a lot of typos, but forgive us. So here's a student. His name is Sammy. He's an undergrad. So he writes and said, I've done lots of reviews. I trust this message finds you in good health. I've done lots of reviews and was not able to come up with something concrete for research. Everything was thrown out by my supervisor. However, I sent this to him recently, which he deems as vague and does not know what I intend to do. Do you mind helping me carve out a good topic from this? I have made a few suggestions of my own benefit of the original topic. So the original topic was assessment of multifunctional herbal, which means local medicine and the expiry dates. Alternative is realities of expiry dates and assessment of multi-purpose herbal medicine in Ghana. Objectives are to establish the stability and efficacy of these multi-purpose herbal medicine pre and post expiry, and then to assess the public perception and lived experiences of multi-purpose herbal medicine. How many of you understand what he's trying to do? You can use the reactions of the Zoom or to let me know if you understand what he's trying to capture. Or you could put in a chat. That's also cool to see.
I'm just looking at the objectives, and I think he's trying to establish if there's a difference in efficacy in this herbal medicine pre and post expiry.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the topic is a bit vague.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the topic seems, so that's what the advisor said. And up to the time that he's coming here, said everything was thrown out by my supervisor. So he's also frustrated. Supervisor is throwing out everything that he thinks that he's coming out. He thinks he's coming out with something really concrete, but advisor says, no, it's not concrete enough. So why? Okay. Here's another second person. Abna, she's in K University in Ghana, and she's in the sociology department working on her thesis. And KCCR is a research institution that gets significant amount of funding. So her project is already funded. She's just going to school to just get the degree and work on a project. But she gets to a thesis level, presenting the work that is being funded, and the teacher said, the committee said they don't want her to pursue that topic. She's doing more qualitative and they want her to switch to something more quantitative. If she switches, she has no funding for the project. And when they ask her why she's not switching to quantitative, she said, well, you taught me, but you didn't teach me really, really well. So I don't know what to do with quantitative related topic. But why are they even pushing her to do that in the first place? And what do you even do in this regard? And then Florence is interested in learning disrespectful care, how pregnant women are treated when they're giving birth. She goes, presents, they have a committee, she presents it to them, and they say, we don't think your project is new enough. You have to change topic. By the time she's here, this is her fifth topic that she's changed. And each time she goes, they say it is not good enough. Why? In the US, William, a classmate of mine, is in chemistry. He's 3 years in, been doing tons and tons of research. This is even an advisor giving project. 3 years in, his experiments are not working. He feels like his advisor is not really as supportive, but he is frustrated, he's unhappy, he's depressed. At the end of the day, he drops out with a master's. So obviously, there's a struggle when you're in graduate school. I think the most defining part of your graduate education or even your research career is the research topic you end up pursuing. So why do we struggle so much to find a topic in the first place and even to complete our research when we've been able to find that topic? Why is it so hard to do that, and the repercussions of those? So I'm going to walk you through some possible reasons and then use those possible reasons as a way of helping you see what is a good question and how do you really identify the gaps when I'm trying to address that. So one theme that you saw throughout all the different students' experiences is an advisor. For some reason, advisors are really critical to the research that you are going to do. So if you don't have a good advisor or you're not compatible with your advisor, that is a recipe for a problem. It doesn't matter how brilliant the idea is, that if you don't get that good support, it becomes an issue. And then the other one is the support systems that are within the university or the setting in which you're doing the research. Do they even find it important? Is the topic important to them enough for them to even put their weight behind you, right? So that is out of your control. There's not much you can do about who your advisor is, and a university end up choosing. Sometimes you don't even have room to choose what we want. But there's another part of it that is within your control. And I think sometimes a lot of it comes from that individuals who are beginning to do research or who are in the very early stages of their research don't understand the concept of what we call positioning. I think if you're taking notes, this is something I think you should write down, is that we may not understand our positioning and what is expected of us at different levels of our research career and trajectories. So that is one big one, and I will explain what I mean by that. The second one is, I think when I started, I thought I knew research. You know, when I say quantitative research, qualitative, you have this idea about them, you know what they are. But research is a process, right? And I think sometimes students or people in the early careers don't understand what the process of research is, but also the politics of research. The individuals who are safeguarding the research, the individuals who are stakeholders of your research, what are the politics that, and what are the things they are considering when they are looking at you and looking at your topic, and how are they deciding whether to support you or not to support you? So I want to walk you through some of them, and then you use that to also identify gaps. Okay. First is a lesson that I learned even in my own career is I was having a hard time getting funding for my research. And I felt sometimes that the ideas that we have are so good. People who review it say the idea is good. But if the idea is good, why is it that you are not being funded? And so our head of our university said, well, it is not good ideas that get funded or supported. It is well-positioned ideas that do. Why would two investigators have a similar idea? They end up giving the money to one person and then not give it to one person. Or why would two people have the same even paper and they will go to one journal and that journal will readily embrace the paper and publish it, but another journal will say, nope, I don't want to publish that. Why? Right? So it is not only about the idea, it's where the positioning of the idea is and how people are reacting to the position of the idea. So what is positioning in the first place? Okay. If in understanding positioning, you need to understand that it entails two things. One is you as the investigator when you're assessing, and the other one is the science of where the field is going. Right? By the time you got into your topic, by the time you get into PhD school or master's level, like there's been individuals who've done so much research and the field is going somewhere. So where the project that you're proposing, where is it in the continuum of the research where it's going? Is it the one that's going to lead us to another breakthrough, or is it just repeating what someone has already done? Right. So the positioning involves you, the individual, and then the science. And so when you enter into graduate school or you are starting any early career, you have to recognize that you are an apprentice. Okay, that's how they see you. They don't see you as an expert. They don't see you as someone who, sorry to say, is capable of fully executing a research project because they think you don't have enough experience. And if you're an apprentice, you know what apprentices do? They go and study under a master. And the master has their own agenda. They had something that they want to accomplish. And you're coming there to help them. So at the end of the day, if you're not there to help them, what is your use? Quote unquote. Right? You're not necessarily you're paying them by paying tuition, but they also have something that they have to balance and they have to accomplish. And if you don't recognize that fundamental truth about who your advisors and the people who are reviewing are concerned, I think you will miss the point. So, and in that thinking of you as an apprentice, one of the things you need to know is what are researchers going to do? And the first thing I want to say that it is not all about you. I think you need to get that at the front of the door, because I think when I started, what I thought was that it's like what I'm interested in is what I'm pursuing. What I want to get out of it is what I want to do. So you go with this really brilliant idea, you're excited about it. It's like, why is no one excited about it? You are the only one who carries that vision. You're the one who likes it. And so if you imagine yourself as an apprentice going to sew some clothes and stuff, you're the one who likes that style. It doesn't mean everyone around you likes that style and what you're trying to accomplish. So don't be surprised when people say your research is not interesting. Right? I can't imagine how many times I've written things and sent it to people and they think it's not interesting, it's not new, it's not exciting. And I say, how can this be? So it is not all about you. That's one thing that you need to recognize. If it's not all about you, who is it then about? Who is it then about? Who is the research about? And I think there are four main stakeholders that are, when you're thinking about a project, there are four main stakeholders that you need to critically think about. The first one is you. And here the you is in such a way that if it's not interesting to you, if it doesn't motivate you, at some point in time, you will quit. So in some way, it has to be of interest to you. But the other person that is important is this person. Oh, where is it? Is your advisor. The thinking is that the advisor is the person who is giving you the gateway to the field. They are the ones who seems to know what you should be doing. And you have to realize that when you are a student or you're a graduate at PhD level, it is not only about, it's about you and your mentor. When you go and defend your project, it is not only about how good you are, it is also an evaluation of how good they are. So when you're not convinced that what you are sending is good enough, then they don't want to help you. Okay. 2, if you become a faculty, there are 3 things that you are evaluated on. One is teaching. Can you teach? Do students think that you're a good teacher? That's the first one. The second one is, are you serving the university, whether your program, so you are serving on committees and stuff like that. But the third one is research. And oftentimes the teaching and the service, people just, it's easier, can put something together, might not be the best teacher. And so they don't struggle with the teaching and the service as much. What they struggle the most is the research. So when they go for what they call tenure and their research is not as good, then it becomes a problem for them. But how are they judging whether their research is good or not? It's 2 things. One is the number of publications that they have, and in its relative, its quality, the number of quality research papers they have. And the second one is how much funding are they bringing in? Those are the 2 things that are most important to them in their career. If they don't publish enough and they don't get enough money, at the end of the day, they don't have a job security. So when you come to them to work with them, they are thinking, if they're going to give their time to support you to do your thing, it's the same, it's equivalent to them not working on their own project and getting themselves published. So in some way, they are putting your career, they are sacrificing their career for you in one way or the other. And when I started teaching, I didn't understand this fundamental thing about research. So I spent the first 2 years of my career trying to mentor students, trying to write papers with students. And one of the things you learn about students is that they start, but they don't finish. Writing a research paper is not the most primary thing that motivates students. Grade or experience so that they can put on your resume and move on to the next level. So you spend 2 years of your academic life supporting a student and you don't get any paper published out of it. It's like you've wasted your time. And so when you come to an advisor with a topic or you're trying to find, they begin to think, is this really going to help me in one or the other? The second part of it is your thesis committee or your reviewers. So if you're writing a paper or you're looking for funding, there are people who are reviewing your stuff. If they are reviewing your stuff, what is their interest? Okay. When individuals are on a thesis committee, they put it on their resume because if they serve on your committee, it means that they are an expert in something. So when you're going for evaluation and for their tenure, they want to see if they are advising students or not, if they are serving on doctoral committees or master's stage. So they have a benefit, but they are not really motivated by publication purposes. They are motivated by giving you advice and stuff like that. Okay. The last one is a scientific committee. All these individuals are answerable to the community of scientists that are within your discipline and the funders who give them the money. This is why anytime you start trying to do a research, they say, have you read the literature? Because your advisor is answerable to the literature if you do it and it's not important. The thesis committee is answerable to the literature. So these are the things that they are thinking about. And it's not all about you, it's also about them. So if the project doesn't align, yours and their life doesn't align, you begin to experience problems. So when a student approaches an advisor, a faculty person to work with them, there are a few things that I personally am thinking of and they are also thinking of. Is it really related to my own research? If it's not, then it means it is something that I have to carve out and pay attention to. I don't know how to put it. It's another thing. It's another activity that I may not necessarily get benefit out of it. Because when you're judging on your research, you're judging to see is your research following a specific topic over time? They don't like when you do one project here, it's about COVID, another project here is about maternal and child health, another project here is about HIV, another project here is about infectious. They don't like that. They like you to have a trajectory of a particular idea or line of inquiry. So when you bring a topic that is tangential to what the advisor wants, it is something that doesn't necessarily benefit them, and then they begin to drag their feet, and they don't want to help you. The second one is the student committed enough? So even if it's not related to my work, but I know you are committed and I know you see it through, then they were willing to mentor you and give you some ideas and support as you go. So if you don't demonstrate this to them, particularly they write to you, don't respond as much, they give you work, you're always asking for an extension, they give you something for you to turn over, you give them a crappy draft, like they look at that to see how committed and how competent you are. Then the last two ones, particularly this one, is it publishable? If an advisor or a reviewer see that your work is publishable, they will give you money, they'll give you time, they'll give you audience, they'll give you. So if you can't decide and think about whether your work is publishable or not, then that becomes a problem. And then becomes an issue for you to kind of find something to work on. And then can you complete the work? And are you competent to do that? Okay. So when you're positioning yourself at different levels, there are different things they're expecting of you. Okay. When you're an undergraduate, what they want to do is that they want to expose you to research. Just get to know how research is done. They're not asking for any rocket science. Just come and see and observe people do research. That's the primary drive when you are doing an undergraduate. When you get to a master's level, the goal is experience. Can we give you something a little bit for you to be a part of, for you to lead, for you to manage? But there's someone hovering over you all the time. When you get to the doctoral level, we are training you to lead research. So at the end of the day, can you become independent? When the advisor is not there, do you have the skill set to be able to lead? So what we expect of a leader versus what we expect of an experience and an exposure is very, very different. So if you're an undergraduate and it comes and you want to lead a research, that's a problem. If you're a master's level and you want to, I want to completely take over everything, I don't care, but I can do everything, that's also a problem. Because the expectation, the positioning becomes very, very different. So here is Samuel. This is a little bit hard to read, but I can try and read it for you. It said, "Dear Kwame, trust this message finds you good health." That's the same person I was Justice was and I were talking about. Say, I've done lots of reviews and was not able to come up with something concrete for research. Everything was thrown out by myself. Remember that quote that I said at the very beginning? And so here's what I replied to him. I unfortunately agree with him a little bit. It's not clear what you want to do and how the way things are written. Instead of listing a topic, could you write a short paragraph of what you want to accomplish? Sorry, with a mistake. Like, how are you going to assess stability and efficacy? What is a multi-purpose herbal medicine? What is a functional herbal medicine? You know, if you have something in your mind, you could describe it. Then we can carve out some objectives and aims for this. So did he give you a topic in the first place, right? Think about him as an undergraduate trying to do this work. The part that really got me was, okay, you have good thoughts here, and these are good questions, but there are some issues that may be beyond your ability. Remember the competence, the positioning. He's an undergraduate student, and this is what I said. For example, how are you going to measure their potency? Do you need a lab to assess and test something? How are you going to measure side effects? Are you going to look at patients and test them or their label? Like, how are you going to do? You are just an undergraduate now learning. How are you going to set up your own lab to measure someone's potency? Do you even have the money to do that? Or are you thinking of a systematic review? Right? There's a mispositioning of what is expected of him and what he thinks he's able to do. And as a result of that, the supervisor is throwing the research away, that they can't support that. Okay, so lesson number one. if it is possible, align your research or aspect of your research with your advisors. Like, give them something to get them to be able to invest the time in you, because you're not the only student. They can invest in someone else. Okay, so give them something for them to be able to invest in you, or the department that you are in. If your advisor does, it's not that, other people within your department or institution whose mission that you need to be able to kind of let it align with. And I'm saying this with where possible, because sometimes your advisor and you, they just put the two of you together and you just really don't click. And so if you don't click, why do you even create something, consider the person's views and perspective in it? Change an advisor or change a topic or find a way to say you are sick and you can't do it and they should find you someone else. All right. So I've talked about positioning. The second one is in the process and the politics of research. So if you're not doing a dissertation, a thesis and stuff like that, and you're doing your own research and stuff like that, this is where you use to kind of find the topics and the gaps in the literature to be able to kind of help you out. First, research has politics because you're dealing with people and you have interest, and I've talked to you about that. Now, I want you to say, now is the science of what you're doing and how you're going to articulate the science to people and how you're going to let the research sell. In some way, you're a salesperson. You're going to sell something. You're going to sell an idea, and that the idea is good enough for people to spend their time and their money on you. If you miss these two goals in politics, you get screwed over. So first, don't forget. And that's why I was asking you, what kind of degree are you pursuing? Some of you say, I'm doing an MPhil, and some of you may be doing a PhD, but you stop and think about, what is an MPhil and what is a PhD? What does it stand for? My understanding is that MPhil is Master of Philosophy. A PhD is a doctor of philosophy. What do philosophers do? They think and argue all the time, right? But when you're going in, you're not thinking you're going to you're not going to get a philosophy degree, but you got to also be mindful of philosophy here. And that's where I'm going to start from, because that's what your degree is about. Okay. First, when you are thinking of research, you're thinking here. You identify your study question somehow magically. You find an approach, is it quantitative or qualitative, and you're stressing over that. Then how am I going to collect my data? How am I going to analyze my data? And how am I going to report my findings? That is the step-by-step way that they teach research. But there is the behind-the-scenes stuff, the behind-the-scene things that you don't necessarily see, but reviewers and your advisors and stakeholders are thinking about. And that is how they're judging you to see whether your idea is good enough or not good enough. So I'm going to use this framework to help you see it, okay? And the name I want you to remember, and if you want to read about it, his name is Clcd's framework. It has been a fundamental, it shaped fundamentally how I've thought about research and what goes into research. So Clcd says that there are four main ways we think about research, and these things are related to each other. The first one is epistemology, and epistemology means is a study of knowledge. Okay, what counts as knowledge? What counts as truth? Okay, then the theoretical perspective is the ideas of how you think things are related together. So the way you think about knowledge will be related to the way you think about how things are related. And then how things are related will determine how you're going to measure the things that are related, right? If you think you're related in some way, you're going to measure it some way. And then if you're going to measure it some way, what tools are you going to use to measure so that you can assess the relationship, so that it reflects your theory and so that it reflects the way of knowing? So they are all interlinked. This means that when someone publishes a paper and you're trying to find a gap, you can use these four criteria to assess what are the gaps in the person's work that they have. Is it related to the epistemology? Is it related to the theory that you're bringing in? Is it to the methodology, or is it the methods? And you can use all of these things as a way of identifying gaps in a study. So I'm going to walk you through them in one or the other. First, you have to understand what research is meant to achieve and accomplish. Okay, it's not just data, because you can collect data. We have at CLCD, we have a community clinic. We can collect data from our participants, but that is never considered research, because the goal of that data collection is to inform the services that we are providing. We are not saying collecting information to generalize it to a population or transfer it to a different setting. So research, at the core of research, is to discover new knowledge. Okay. I won't spend time talking about generalizability and transferability, but I want to talk about just these two ones, because I think that's where the heart of our conversation today is. But here's the philosophy part. What counts as knowledge? Okay. What constitutes new? Like, what makes something new? And who is the judge to say something is new and something is knowledgeable? So I want to ask you, what counts as knowledge? What would you say counts as something worth knowing? What counts as knowledge? You could talk, you could put it in a chat. And it's nice if someone put something in the chat. If you can read for me, that'll be cool. What counts as knowledge? Okay. So just say what empowers an individual. What empowers individuals? Okay. Okay. Another question I want to ask you is, does truth exist? Does truth exist? I'm asking, let me go it this way. Does truth exist? Can we have an absolute truth about something? Does truth exist? Information that could change your perspective is knowledge. Pre-existing skills and information acquired at a certain stage of life. Okay, it's knowledge. So the second question is, does truth exist?
I would say yes.
You would say
Truth
yes.
exists in the sense that there are things that can be proven to be true, but there are always new information can lead to new truths.
Okay, can you give me an example?
For example, okay, let's say, for example, okay, I'm going back to my pharmaceutical knowledge. It can be proven that paracetamol as an analgesic can cure pain.
Right.
And you can measure that in terms of, pain. You can maybe use a scale of a patient rating their scale from before and after. So that is truth that paracetamol does alleviate pain. So that's truth. But you can add new knowledge in terms of what extent can it actually alleviate pain.
To what I say. Okay. All right. So I want to walk you through this. And not all researchers will agree. Okay. Not all researchers will agree. So they say that there are four major ways, there are multiple, but there are four major ways that researchers think about truth. Is there an objective truth about something? Okay. There is one group of researchers that has an epistemological position called objectivism. They believe, like justice, that there is an absolute truth out there. Paracetamol works to cure pain. You can measure pain and you can determine pain. There's another group that says truth doesn't necessarily exist. Truth is constructed. What we consider pain, some group of people came together and said, okay, this is what we say. When we say pain, this is what it means. When we say a pain range from 0 to 10, this is what we say it means. Why didn't you say it's from 0 to 100? Or why is pain not defined something else? Like, who is defining pain? Right? So the pain of itself is constructed. And the other one is transformative worldview and pragmatism. And I want to walk you through them little by little so that you can see where it's coming from. So the objectivism individuals, they say truth exists and they are obsessed with cause and an effect. Paracetamol leads to pain reduction. They are black and white. There is no in between. Okay, so they are obsessed with measurement. They think that if you don't find the truth, it is because you didn't measure it right. That if you have the right method, you'll be able to measure it. And then their goal is to verify theory. Right? You have a theory and they want to test their hypothesis, and then they find out. So whenever you write a paper, they're asking you, what is your hypothesis? Oh, I don't have a hypothesis. But how can you not have a hypothesis? That's like weird. That's just like so bizarre. And so you will see that this is the kind of epistemology that's embraced by our natural sciences, embraced by epidemiology, very quantitative, really driven. So when you do qualitative, it becomes a problem for them. Okay. And then you have the constructionism or constructivism individuals who says that, well, there are multiple meanings that people assign to them. There's multiple truths. What is true for you, it may not be the same truth for someone else. What you consider pain isn't the same thing that I consider as pain. So there's no one way of measuring pain, and it doesn't cut across for everybody. So there is, can you find the multiple meanings and the multiple truths that does exist? And so the goal is to generate theory. And this is the epistemology that is embraced by qualitative researchers. You don't write a qualitative paper and say that this is the truth about people's experiences. They won't embrace and accept your paper. Then there's the other one is transformative. They are very justice oriented. They think if you do research and you publish it and you don't give it back to the community, you don't use it to help the community, then that is a problem. So that is not good research. So they are big on power, justice, and change orientation. And so they embrace qualitative and some quantitative, but they're big on qualitative too. Then there's other people that say, okay, we don't care about whether truth exists or truth doesn't exist. Truth is what works. If I have pain and paracetamol is what cure the pain, then paracetamol is the truth to pain. I don't care whether it's constructed or not. So this is the epistemology that is embraced by mixed methods researchers. Okay, so why am I even telling you this in the first place? So look here. So the lesson I've learned over time and the other researchers are learning over time is that if your research and your work doesn't align with the epistemological position of your field, they don't embrace what you have. It's not that they don't like it, but they are not going to applaud you. They're not going to celebrate you. They're not going to invest their time in it. They're not going to give you the funding to be able to do that. And so you have to be aware what the epistemological position of your field is. And here is an example. Stigma in health. This guy is my mentor. But whenever you send a qualitative paper to it, they don't publish it. And this is what they write. Stigma in Health publishes peer-reviewed original research articles that may include, tests of hypotheses about the form and impact of stigma, examination of strategies to decrease stigma, survey research capturing stigma in populations, and methods meant to erase the stigma of mental. Do you hear qualitative in here? No. You can have the most beautiful topic that is qualitative related to stigma. They won't publish it because they don't think that qualitative research counts. And so you are stuck. So if you're working in stigma and you want to publish in a prestigious journal like this and you don't buy it, then you're stuck. Okay. Here, this one, qualitative research journal. This is what they say. Journal was founded to offer a critical and reflective gaze, thinking. Okay, authors take critical engagement with orthodox and the heterodox, the familiar and the innovative, the modern, the postmodern, the experimental and the traditional. Like, this is multiple perspectives, multiple ideas is what they embrace. And so they say methodology and qualitative practice. They specifically say they like qualitative. So that is the epistemological position of that particular journal and that particular discipline. And so if you want to get into it, then you have to align your work with them. And you see that it makes it hard. So some of the students who work with me and we are trying to find a place to publish it, you realize that it's good research, but they say, I don't want to publish it because it doesn't align epistemologically with them. Okay. Then finding the new. Okay. I want to give you a framework to help you a little bit to move from the philosophy to practical. And the practical is the exposure, disease, and population framework. So whenever you're studying any problem, any issue, I'll consider that issue as the disease or problem or issue that you're looking at. And then the exposure is the things that are causing the issue to exist. It is the experiences of individuals for that particular disease. So if you're looking at public health and medicine, we call that risk factor. Okay. And then the third one is the population that you are interested in. Okay. So the first one is that you do an existing literature search and they write about different things. So the exposure, the disease, and the population. So think about here. If they did this, exposure one, disease one, you can come up with a new research where you are looking at a different risk factor. The same disease, the same population, but your risk factor that you're looking at is different. So if they're studying smoking and cancer, you are studying contraceptives and cancer. That is a risk factor difference, okay? The second one is that you can study the same exposure, but you can apply it to a different disease, a different problem, but just keep the same population of interest. The third one is that you can study the same exposure, the same disease, but you are applying to a different population. So you've done in the US, have they done in Ghana before? Have they done in Nigeria? Have they done in Tanzania? If they haven't done it there, you can assume that they are different. They are the same. So that creates new information. The last one is can you synthesize all these research that are here? And that's what we call systematic reviews. Okay, so when you're trying to find it, you can look at each of these ones and can help you to do that. Okay, so practically, what does it mean? It means is that my second lesson is read, 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 read. Whenever people come and you're having problems with the advisor, the first thing I ask them is, have you read your advisor's research? Do you even know their style of writing? And so their research will tell you the limitation and what they're interested in and where they want to go. And so when you come and say, okay, I'm interested in this, I know you've done this. This is where I feel like we meet. This is where I feel like it can build on what you are doing. The other one is then that, to me, one of the easiest way is to look for systematic reviews and scoping reviews. These reviews will look at multiple papers in the field and then identify the type of studies that they're doing and the limitations that they have. So they already have done the work for you. They already would have done the work for you. But if those things doesn't exist, what then do you do? So this is an example of a systematic review that they're looking at stigma for HIV. And so when I wanted to work on HIV, that's what I was looking at. And then when we went, they said the majority of the studies have looked at reducing the aspect of stigma they measured. None assess the influence of stigma or discrimination reduction on HIV-related health outcomes. That is the gap. That is the gap. So when we went to do our study, we wanted to do What stigma reduction strategy can improve HIV-related outcomes? And then we can say, oh, all the 20 studies that they said they haven't looked at HIV-related outcomes. Can we look at a stigma reduction strategy and its effect on HIV-related outcomes? That is a gap. If not, when I was in graduate school, my research was on looking at caring for low birth weight infants and then its relation to HIV. And the tip I learned in grad school is that once you know the area, then when they give you an assignment, try and tie it to the area of interest. So what I did is I systematically look at all the literature that has been published, and I was interested in different risk factors of that contributes to having a low birth weight among HIV-related participants. And so I went and then I created each of these studies and the risk factors, and I color-coded them. So the red is a risk factor for HIV, a risk factor among women with HIV to having a low birth weight infants. The green are things that reduces the likelihood. The gray is that they don't have any experience at all. And the black is that they've never measured that and they didn't study that. If I look at this pictorially, it helps me identify what are the gaps, what are the things that people are doing, and how do I move forward and identify my own research. So if you can create a matrix or a bibliography to help you get accustomed to what individuals are doing. So I want to take a minute and look at this one, to a paper that we published, is this one. This current paper fills an important gap in the literature. So what gap is it going to fill? We are not aware of other research that has explored the relation between quantity of friends and long-term mental health, particularly on externalizing symptoms in young adulthood. My question for you is this: what is new here? How are they pitching this research? What is new here? Is it the exposure? We might be using that same framework. Is it exposure? Is it a disease? Is it a population? Is it a methodology? If you can put your answer in the chat, that would be really appreciated. Okay, Ezekiel 6, exposure. Sergio says it's population. Adjoa, Martha, Michael, Peter. Nat, good to see you. Bernard, my old friends. Exposure. Okay, all right. So here's how they say: we are not aware of other research that has explored the relation between quantity of friends and long-term mental health. So long-term mental health is the disease of interest, but they are saying that no one has assessed the relationship between this. So this is your exposure of interest. Okay, but they're also saying particularly on externalizing symptoms in young adulthood. So they also bringing in age and the population as another dimension of this one. So exposure and population are something that they are talking over here. This is an example, but for the sake of time, I want to move on and so that I can finish. The second one is the theoretical perspective and methodology. So if the epistemology works, you've identified the exposure disease one. That's one way of looking at the gap. The other way is to look at the theory that is driving the work that they're doing and the methodology that they're using. So here is an example. The theory will drive the methodology and research. So the theory is that the relationship between the concept of the ideas, how they are conceptualized. And every research has one of them. Either you know it or you don't know it, okay? The methodology, on the other hand, is the approach or the process of how you are designing the study, how they are collecting the data, how they are analyzing the data, and how they are disseminating the results. The biggest one researchers use to identify gaps is here: methodology. if you can tear their methodology apart in the way they have designed the study, gold. So if you know how research is designed and what are the limitations and the strengths of each one of them, that is really, really good. So you can generate new ideas by filling the gap that is inherent in theory and methodology. So here is one that we did with HIV. When they talk about stigma, they relate stigma in HIV as how individuals are treating and discriminating against you. So not some of the work that we've done, it'll tell you that people don't treat HIV individuals right. But this is what we were saying, that what the current research has made abundantly clear is that the needle point on HIV stigma interventions, which has traditionally focused on enacted stigma, which is how individuals discriminate, should be moved further to be inclusive of intersectional stigma. So we are bringing in a new kind of theory. The concept of intersectional stigma examines how multiple stigmatized conditions, such as sex work. So if you're in sex work, you are already stigmatized, and then you have HIV in addition to it. Or sometimes you're a woman and you're married and you have HIV, that you have experiencing double or layered stigma or intersectional stigma. So, and we said that in Ghana, these stigmas they're there. Some are birth weight related, some are disability related, some are sex work related. So we do not know. Here's the gap. He said that none of the 20 HIV internalized stigma interventions reviewed incorporated intersectional stigma, right there. So here we are using the theory of what they've done, and we are drawing from this from a systematic review to say no one has done this before. It is new, and so give us money to do that. Then the other one is how the methodology, how they are using strategies they are using to address stigma. We are saying that, well, a lot of the stigma has been done among women, but not postpartum women. That's one. Two, when they implement the stigma studies, their research results are not that strong. There's weak evidence. And then they are created in the US and UK and stuff like that, and they require a lot of writing. Like, someone who hasn't gone to school, how are they going to write? So the methodology that they're using to approach stigma is insufficient, and it won't work in Ghana, it won't work in sub-Saharan Africa. And as a result of that, their methodology is inadequate, and our research is new because we want to use a different perspective of addressing stigma. The last one is, after you've identified the topic, you don't stay there. And this is where Samuel's problem was coming from. You don't stay there because you have to convert the topic into a research question. If you don't have a research question, you don't have a research to do. The topic is a general idea. So how do you get there? So here is Samuel. When he came, he's like, I'm still working on the idea of reading at least 30 articles. That's what I told him to go do. Come up with ideas for my thesis through their respective recommendations. In all honesty, I have been struggling because I don't seem to get website or search engine that can give me all the details I envisioned. Most things I've read are just snippets of entire articles or not a full disclosure. Do you mind helping me with some resources I could look at? Again, I came up with a topic which is seen below and submitted to my professor prior to meeting with you. He claims it is a grant-based topic and not research-like. And why would an advisor say that? Look at this. He wants to establish, one of his ideas is, can I establish a Ghana Center for Disease Control? That is his research topic. Another one he's thinking about is, can I establish a national stockpile for key research? There's no question here. Or can I compare command centers of Ghana when the COVID pandemic hit to that of neighboring Sierra Leone? What are you comparing? Right? Can I outline a comprehensive Ghana preparedness manual? You want to create a manual. Creating a manual is a practice-driven activity. It's not research. But because he doesn't understand, he's saying my supervisor claims that it is not a grant, it's a grant-based topic. Yes, because a grant can give you money to do something that is not necessarily research. So why the struggle? And I think the struggle is that people find it difficult to move from a topic to a research goal, and a research goal to a research question. And that will be the last 3 slides I have to teach you, and then I'll be done. So first, here is an example. I am interested in pregnant women, postpartum women, and in HIV, they have to take their ARTs and also stay in HIV care. That is the interest I have. So that's the topical area that I'm interested in. So I'm interested in adherence to HIV treatment among women. But that is a broad topic. That is not a research question. So what is my goal? If I'm interested in adherence, what aspect of adherence am I interested in? Well, to me, I wanted to see if you look at home-based counseling instead of a facility-based counseling, would it really improve women's adherence to antiretroviral therapy? Say it is done by a peer at home, somewhere that is closer to the parent versus coming to the hospital and getting all the, would that really affect? That is the goal of what I want to accomplish. It is still not a research question. So you see that the topic is adherence. I am carrying the adherence forward and I'm carrying the population forward. But what I'm interested in is the home-based counseling piece. Then you break down the goal into objective. So what are the things that you need to do that will help me assess how home-based counseling can affect adherence? What are the steps that will help me get there? Well, if I want to create a home-based counseling, it must exist, or I need to come up with the counseling stuff that I need to do. So I want to create counseling materials that will improve adherence to treatment. So that is one objective. It's still not a research question, but it's part of the goal. The second one is that after I've created it, then I can use it to test to see what is its effect on adherence to treatment. So you see that the specific aims tells a story and it's related to the goal of what I'm going to do. Then comes the research question. And the research question needs to be tied to what the specific aim and the objective is. And here is one. I am creating materials and going to do counseling, but what counseling strategies are considered culturally appropriate for postpartum women living with HIV in Ghana? Because if my intervention is dependent on counseling and counseling material, so what strategy is the most effective way? So that is a research question. Then what is the effect of home-based patient counseling on adherence to HIV treatment among postpartum women living in Ghana? That is also linked to the second specific aim or objective of my study. So you see, there is a coherent story and structure tied to the goal and the question. So what do I want to conclude for you today? I know I've gone a little bit fast for the sake of time, but what I want to communicate to you is it is not only about you. You have stakeholders and individuals that also have their own interest. So your research will go as far as the individuals who are stakeholders in your research are willing to participate in it. And what they are assessing is your positioning, which is the competencies you have and whether your work is going to create new knowledge and advance their careers. So as a early career investigator or as a student, you need to balance the science, which is what I've talked about, the epistemology and the theory and the stuff like that, with the politics of the individuals who are part of the work. I have also shared with you that you can use the epistemology, the theoretical framework, the methodology and the methods, and find gaps in those as a way of finding a new topic. You can also use the EDP, the exposure, disease, and the population as a way of finding a new one. And at the end of the day, the topics that you create, they need to be translated to an answerable research question. And that is what will get individuals to support your research, give you money, and your advisors will be able to kind of help you move things along. Okay. All right. This is a thank you for your attention. And then if you want to contact us, if you go through CLCD, you should be able to kind of reach out to me, and then we can talk more. Questions?
I have a question. If you can just go back, maybe like 2 slides back, about the culturally competent patient counseling. I'm
Okay,
just curious, what measure are you using to determine the cultural appropriateness of something?
exactly. So this is where if I had been in this was just a pure, I was just using it as an example. It's not an actual study that we ended up doing, but there is what we call cultural adaptation models that exist. So here I can do it two ways. One is that I can go in and do a qualitative, trying to understand from women that when someone is counseling you, what are some of the things you want to hear? What are some of the things that sounds good and sounds bad? What are things they should say and not say? So you can go and ask them, and that becomes a research on its own, right? Or the other way is that I can then go to the literature and say cultural appropriate counseling strategies. And then I look to see if there's been systematic reviews for me to kind of find out. So just that's what I would do. But we haven't done it yet. So
Thank you.
Alice? Let me see this one. Please, will the presentation be made available? Yes. SNM, if you just register, SNM will send it, and we have your email. We'll make it available, and then the recording of it will also be made available to you. Yeah, I'm also curious to hear what your guys' experiences have been. Like, how has it like been for you trying to find research topics, and what has worked very well, what hasn't worked? I'm kind of curious. Those of you want to stay and kind of chat, I'd love to hear.
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you so much for that detailed presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, I'm trying to secure a lab for my PhD.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in code mailing the PIs,
Mm-hmm.
we're advised to go through their publications.
Right.
Now, while doing that, they should try to look for a research gap in
Mm-hmm.
one of the publications.
Mm-hmm.
While code mailing them so that it can fit their interest.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do? I don't know how correct it is. I'm yet to be corrected. I usually go through the publications, and I will not go through the concluding part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to read the conclusion to see what they are proposing as future research. Can that also serve as a gap? Why try to commit? So for example, why they're concluding, they said that they couldn't do so and so, and more research will be done in this area. Can that be a gap?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that is the easiest way people start with. Is they go to the conclusion and find out what they say is the gap in and so you can systematically create a matrix like what I did, and then document what gaps they have. And then you can use that as your way of identifying your research topic and stuff. But researchers are salespeople. So sometimes, salespeople don't do full disclosure sometimes. And if you don't understand the methodology pieces of it, they can tell you that there's no limitation, but there's a very serious limitations to it. So my advice is that look at the limitation and conclusion sections. And if you're capable of doing it, just read the methods, the methodology. Those two areas oftentimes will have what the flow of that study is and what the direction they wanted them to go.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much.
But what has been your experience?
Oh, good to hear from you, Doc.
Yes, I'm glad that.
Okay, so I know I joined the meeting at the philosophy stage.
Right.
My experience with that at a very early stage of my PhD program, I was a little terrified. Not terrified per se, but it's like I really need to identify myself in a particular philosophical kind of
Yes.
concept. In the search for me to find myself, I was tasked to come out with topics. And here is a case: you kind of review people's work, and you see all these varying concepts and philosophical thoughts. And I mean, how to merge them and to come out with a topic which, and also a research area that you can, write on. So it was quite a challenge, but using the metrics approach, it gave me a kind of a guideline, a kind of a framework for me to identify myself and to gain some confidence in my communication in terms of defining the goal of my research topic.
Right.
So I really that was that area where I really find it a little embracing whose philosophy, so that you can kind of let go of your own philosophy.
That's fair.
Or because you want to academically want to satisfy a requirement, so you really have to follow in someone's philosophy. So that thing, is it too early for one to apply his own philosophy at looking out for a research topic, or maybe at the methodological stage of the research process?
Right. Yeah, it's true. I'm even smiling is just like if you are home and you're living with your parents and I'm being I don't know how to put it, but and you bring a girl home, the girl sleeps over, you keep doing that and that. Your father would tell you, when you get your own house, you can do that, not in my house, right? Kind of a thing. And sometimes you need to know at what stage you are. And I think, Bernard, it goes down to, like, at the end of the day, they are also invested, and it is not so much you adapting fully their philosophy and letting go of yours. It's like, what is yours and where is theirs and where do they meet? Can you go to one more? Where do they meet? That is where I feel like it is a sweet spot. Okay, can I finish talking, please? Can you come get Isaac for me, please?
I came if you had the bubble.
Yes, I know. Yeah, how is the bubbles?
Yeah, where is it?
I don't know. Can you go to grandma for me, please?
I can hear it.
Guys, give me a second. Let me put it away.
I was asking if you had bubbles.
Yeah, I do. Go to grandma.
You have it.
Yeah, sorry guys. So I think that the easiest is to find a balance when those two things met. But practically, if I want to finish a PhD and if it will align with them more, I know that it is just temporarily. I can change my topic and my trajectory anytime I want after I've left. So sometimes you have to think of it in the long term. At the end of the day, I can do what they want a little bit now, but to gain the expertise and the skills and stuff like that. And after that, I can do what I want. And there's more joy now doing research because I dictate what research I want to do, how I want to do it, where I want to do it, and my advisor has no play in it. But when I was there, they have a very, very big say. And that's why I was using the analogy of that you are an apprentice. And that should be an important identity that you embrace, and it will help you kind of move through. Others? Akuya and Islam and Ezekiel, Nathaniel, Nat, what has been your experience? I know we've worked together before. Like how has it been for you? Like,
Please, can you get the question again, please?
I'm just saying, in terms of finding a research topic and research ideas, like what have you struggled with, or what have you found to work, things like that.
Okay, I'm driving. Let me just park and I can just give an answer. On the way with the kids.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, think about it. I didn't know you were with the kids. Martha is saying I had to change my research topic. The new topic is not in the area of my supervisors, so I am a little worried about how to get the necessary support. Yeah, that's always a challenge. But if you can find someone within your department who has a very strong interest as you, like at least some aspect of the research is of interest to them and it can support you, that's one. But the other one is that, can you think about, is there an aspect of your research that you think will be of interest to your supervisor? Like, it doesn't have to be everything. If it's not a topic, is the methodology that you're using, is it also of interest to him or her? So I won't say, like, unless they are methodologically not aligned, topically not aligned, then trust me, they won't be as responsive to you. They would kind of blow you off a little bit and just like, whatever you send to me is a fine, you just go, type of a thing. Portia, Tessie, Loretta, Linda, ideas, thoughts, what have been your experiences, so we can learn from each other. If you can't talk and you can type too, that's also, yeah. Prosper.
Yes, thank you very much. Personally, I just started my master's program, and I've just been tasked to get a research topic, and I've had challenges in the reviewing literature, how to identify the gaps. So I saw this poster, and I said, let me join this presentation and see whether it could help me do that. And I think I've really learned a lot. Because first, I read somewhere they say you just look at, I think someone said it earlier, you just look at the conclusion and maybe you can see the gaps. Then there's the research talking about the gaps for future research. But you spoke about looking really at the methodology, the theories, and then that could give you more insight looking at what gaps is there. And I think that's something I'm taking away, and it will really help me on this path. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Prosper. Ajua, Ezekiel, that's way. Any thoughts?
Hi. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, so I think with respect to mine, I think the challenge I had was during my undergraduate studies. I found it a little bit difficult to go to find a topic because my interests to an extent were like significantly wide, and I wanted to do a multidisciplinary research. So trying to get the area where there's a gap between those two fields was a little bit challenging. And sometimes in working on that, it makes it a little bit difficult. So, okay, which of the methodologies would be appropriate looking
Right.
at the two different fields in terms of the like the concepts that will be accepted by both fields.
Right.
So that was my for undergrad. For my master's program now, I'm having a little bit of a challenge because I'm still going to take the same approach, because for me, I'm interested in pregnant women and mental health,
Right.
as well as neurocognitive assessments. However, I'm trying to find with respect to how best I can be able to get this two areas of interest together at one. Because bear in mind, when it comes to men and mental health, genetic medicine plays a key role.
Right.
But sometimes some things that I come up with end up being skewed towards one side over the other at the expense of program that I'm in. So that has been my challenge. I think with this webinar, it will go a long way to help me to find a way to strike that balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, definitely. And I think you can strike some of the balances from the specific aims. Like you have the big picture goal, and then one of the aims is very skewed towards one discipline. Another aim is very skewed methodologically. The tools that you're using is very skewed towards another discipline. I think sometimes it could also satisfy quite a bit. So you can do that through the methodology section, if it's possible. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Doc, for this insightful presentation. Our next lecture series is from Dr. Emma Sachs. She's from Johns Hopkins University, and she's going to take us through conducting qualitative and quantitative systematic reviews. So we'll share the link and then the details for next month with you in your emails. And thank you all for joining. You can leave your chats in the chat box before you finally sign up. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.